Joe! Ah, come on, Daddy! Give me what I want, huh? Give me what I want! Give me!
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Large Lads, the largest show on the internet with your host, Humongous Max, Coach Klong, and Samson. Sam, you brought a topic for this one. Let's start off with you.
Yeah, we're continuing with our new restructuring of these, where we each bring a couple of topics rather than do like questions, because we ended up doing like lists all the time that we're just like slogging our way through. Like, what else can we add to this list?
It only took us 3 years to start realizing we could make the format better.
So my idea was that we each just bring a couple of topics. That way, at minimum, there's at least one person that's passionate about each topic. I think that's a good idea. So the first one was something I've kind of talked about this for ages. It predates John Meadows, but I first was introduced to it with John Meadows, which is like, if you're doing a bodybuilding workout, start the bodybuilding workout with like a squeeze position exercise, something you get a really good mind muscle connection with, and then do like your big compound, and you'll just feel the muscle that much more, and it could make it that much more productive. You could argue it's kind of like a pre-fatigue thing, but I've really been coming around to this, like any muscle you struggle to develop, it seems to work it scales to like everything. If you have a muscle that you're pretty good with, you can just start with the big, like warm up well, just get after the big compound, do your big sets, look for overload with time, and you'll make great progress. But if you're like, man, I just am no good at connecting with XYZ muscle, I feel like this muscle isn't progressing, start with something that's really like short and biased. And I tried this with calves the other week, because I'm always working on my calves. I've got big legs, and I really don't want to be the big leg, small calf guy. So I'm always chipping away in the background. And so I remember I was always told when I first started, biggest mistake everybody makes with calves is you need to stand on a block and get a big stretch, pause at the bottom. Don't let your Achilles tendon kind of just be that rubber band, pause at the bottom. And so every calf raise I've ever done has had this big stretch. And I'm actually pretty weak in the middle range because I've always only ever done calf raises with a big stretch. So I did 3 sets of just calf raises standing on the floor beforehand last week. And then I did 3 sets with my feet up on a block to get a stretch. Holy shit, it felt so productive. And I was just like, it ties back to that same tip of like shorten length, then long length. I did like, just for fun on my deload week, I did tricep press downs with a rope, and then I did my close grip benches. Totally different experience, very different workout, right? I think that obviously the close grip first is probably a little bit better for strength training, but like when you're trying to mix it up in the off season, really, really good.
It's very funny because I feel like kind of like the terminology usually like dictates what area of lifting they're coming from, right? Because like if someone goes like, you need to turn on your glutes, yep, I'm immediately like, ooh, I don't trust you. Yep. This is like an answer of charlatans oftentimes. But also, I do hip thrusts before deadlifts because it allows me to have a better, I know I'm more inclined to use the muscle if I do a warm up. Yep. And so like in essence, it's the exact same thing of just like do a little bit of work here. It allows you to feel it better. You might use it a little bit more preferentially if you have a better feeling for it. But like just the term of like, you've got to turn on your sleeping low back.
Bromley has some good, Senior Bromley has some good stuff on this where he's like, look, I get why activation probably isn't the right term because it's already active. Everybody says, oh, if your glutes were turned off or your glutes were asleep, you couldn't stand up right. Sure. Okay. I agree. Right. So it's not like they're switching. They're not, the people, like you said, it's kind of like gimmicky terminology. Like Kirsten's come across a lot of this in like the physical therapy world. Like your glutes are switched off. You've got sleepy glutes. Right. And so it's like, okay, they're not switched off. That's wrong. But at the same time, if you talk to a strength athlete and you're like, are you using your glutes as much as you could to contribute to your hip hinge?
Yeah.
Is it that automatic? Every decent strength athlete would be no. That's like you could position yourself or you could use more deliberate intent to contribute more to your hip extension with the glutes earlier, right? Like you can use mind muscle connection. You can use activation drills. I get why activation drills isn't the right term, but it's kind of what we've called them for the last 20, 30 years. years. So I just tell guys, I'm like, do your glute activation drills if you're someone who you feel like your glutes are under contributing to your hinge. It can also help with people who are like excessively like anteriorly tilted. But that's an interesting one, right? It's like either end of the spectrum, I end up like kind of zoning out where it's like your glutes are asleep. You need to turn them back on, like kind of zoned out. But then it's at the same time you hear the guys like, none of that matters. Just do the lift. Never ever do any warm-up drills ever. The only way to get better technique is to lift heavy weights.
Yeah, we always just like there's constantly the pendulum swing, and both ends are almost always wrong, right? Because I remember it was like the whole like you got to foam roll and fascia release and like do all this weird like band on your elbow shit or you're gonna explode, right?
100%, yep.
Which it's very funny because like I understand guys who probably were beat up, are kind of just like doing a really weird shitty massage.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't need to do that to warm up, and then it was like you don't need to be spending an hour and a half warming up. Just move a little bit better.
Yep.
And it's like, and then it was like no warm up, guys.
Then there's like no warm up. There's no such thing. Exactly. It went from like over warm up, Kelly Starrett era. Like you got to facilitate this and facilitate this, and maybe that's good for big guys because we do so little training volume.
I remember it's the old Matt Wenning, like I think it was like 500 rep tricep warm up, and he'd always be like, my fucking warm up so these pussies work out.
Easy there. Some of our fans love the Wenning warm ups, brother.
But 500 reps.
4x25 on like 4 different movements, 400 working reps of different warm-up exercises. It's a little excessive, but it is to each their own, right?
I think that's bad.
But yeah,
I'll come out with that take. That's excessive.
That pendulum swung a little too far where it's like guys were copying elite athletes, and it's like elite athletes are carrying a lot of fatigue. They're banged up. They hurt a lot. Like weightlifters are in pain a lot, right? And so then they're like, oh, they do this activation and this activation. You need to do those activations because if it's going to make your 2 sets of squats a week better, then fucking do them, right? Versus a lifter who's like an intermediate beginner, you got a nice 10 sets a week of squats. Focus on doing the squats well, right? Like that's what the energy, to stop wasting energy with activation and drilling crap, work out. Do workouts, right? But then it swung. Sorry, I'm just going to finish that kind of like, then the pendulum went the other way. Whereas like now you had like, it was like almost this over-the-top barbell medicine thing where it's like nothing before the lift makes any sense. There is no such thing as good technique. The only way to improve your technique is to lift heavy weights, as if there isn't like technical models don't exist, right? There is no such thing as improving your technique at sub-maximal weights. It's part of form, but the only part of form is resisting breakdown. All right, I don't know. That was a tangent of mine, but like we swung that other way. We're like, if you spend any time warming up, you're a Mongo. There is no such thing as good technique. Good technique is just what your body will find by asking it to pick up heavy stuff over and over. It's like lots of guys get to a 500 deadlift because they did it the way their body was telling them was the easiest way to do it. And then they hit the nastiest plateau I've ever seen.
It is very funny, and it feels like slightly counterintuitive. I had this thought yesterday. I was working up to a top set, right? And I was like, I'm doing way more work beforehand to like try and ensure every aspect of it goes right. And I took smaller jumps, which like if like hypothetically if you're thinking of it as like I'm maximizing the performance for one set, I would probably want to take a slightly lighter set. But I was like, I'd rather, because like I'm not gonna be that pre-fatigued from doing a slightly heavier, like 95% of my top set for an extra set. But like the likelihood I might be able to get a little bit extra from being that like extra bit dialed in. Whereas whenever we're doing straight sets, I'm taking a fucking massive jump because I'm like, I know I have 4 sets to fine tune my thing. And I'd much rather get into doing those. And like I want to save energy, so I have as much energy to do those as well as possible. And those are like I'm getting better technique, or the goal is to get better technique over those course. Whereas hopefully my top set, I'm coming in with the best technique I can for that session and then just executing, rather than like I'm not going to make minor adjustments mid-set really to like fix my technique. Like if I unrack it with a bad upper back position, there's no fixing that. So I'm gonna do a little bit of extra back work to make sure.
So it kind of depends on how much volume you have to do, right? It's like if you have very little volume and so it's like I need to make sure it's good shit, then it's like you kind of front load that effort. But if you've got opportunities for the lift itself to be the practice, do that, right? Like that's more applicable to like guys who are more intermediate level, or even guys who are more advanced level in lighter weight classes. Yeah, plenty of work to get through across the week. That can be your practice, you know?
Yeah, well, like a 74 kilo guy, I'm not going to expect to be doing as much. Just like I'm like making sure like every aspect of my core is warm.
The neck pull down.
Yeah, like my upper body is moving as well as possible, all that stuff. And I've noticed doing inverted volume, so just like whatever your reps would be, make that your sets and vice versa. I'm just like, I'm going to figure out what I need to be more warm as I go, basically. If I'm doing like light inverted volume, that's been a thing on my bench is because we've been doing like a speed 6x2. As I've just been like, I'll figure this out, what I need to fix as I go. I'm not going to spend 45 minutes warming up and then do a 6x2 because the part of the warm up is the 6x2 at that point.
When we do inverted volume workouts like that, I expect the first one to not be great. And like the idea is they get better. Maybe we do a couple plateaued and then maybe we end. Is how we do a lot of the time when we've got those inverted volume workouts. I expect them to actually rise in quality as you go because you're getting more warm and you're making corrections. And then we don't like keep going until they're super deteriorated. We just get to as good as they get. We do a couple there and then that kind of is the workout a lot of the time with the inverted volume. I guess on the topic of bodybuilding, hello there, Coach Klong.
Hello.
Big Coach Klong.
Legendary Coach Klong.
Yes.
We were greatly missed last episode.
Yeah, we got a comment that was like, damn, these fucking suck without Kirsten. No offense.
It's like, Zay and I finished, we're like, good episode, great episode. But it's like, boring as hell without Kirsten.
This was boring as shit without Kirsten. No offense. All right, man.
Same thing, that one got Sam.
I was like, okay, man. It's not like I just spent an hour editing that coin segment. Thanks. We were talking about how it's funny, right? Sometimes people, they've got like let's say their upper back is lagging. And the solution is heavy basics. You are trying to be too mind-muscle connection goofy. And they switch to the heavy basics and their back blows up. And then sometimes, like John Meadows said, I was hammering the heavy-duty big basics with big weights and my back sucked. And it wasn't until I started doing these more like angle pulls, a little bit more mind-muscle connection work, like got a little bit more hippy-dippy with it. You have had a little bit of an experience with this recently that mirrored my own. There's all these arguments why like preacher curls and like Bayesian curls are, all curls are good. But they're like, if you're going to pick the best ones, there's kind of good arguments to make that those are the best ones. And you kept doing those. And we're making like really poor.
Doing fuck all.
Yeah. It's kind of the same for me. And like until we switched to just a heavy standing curl, which is kind of the same thing that happened to me is like, I wanted to bring up my biceps a little bit. And I was doing like this like more optimized. Like, I understand the arguments why preacher curls and maybe Bayesian curls, if you're going to pick two, they fit some criteria. And, I was listening to John Meadows' thing, and it's like some guys, they come up with these criteria, like these are the criteria, and then they pick the exercises based on what fits the criteria the best. Other people just go more bottom up. It's just like, okay, well, I'm just going to see what I respond to and whether it fits the criteria or not. If I'm getting a great response, perfect example for me and Max. Max is actually, the jury's still out, but kettlebell swings, great glute exercise for me, phenomenal. On paper, I would have said, that probably wouldn't be my pick for bodybuilding. They work though, right? Like John Meadows always had a lot of creative things. It's like, well, this doesn't quite fit the criteria. Well, he tried it and he got a phenomenal training response. So is it better to go bottom up or top down? I always got better results with like heavy standing curls, whether it's dumbbell or barbell. So I've kind of put you onto that instead of doing the TikTok exercises. Yeah. What do you think about this?
Yeah, way better. But I also think the caveat is important that I like came from powerlifting, so I didn't do a lot of bicep work. So I think my biceps are like relative to my whole body extremely underdeveloped. So I think that could be part of why, right? Like I wouldn't put like a beginner on a Bayesian curl and be like, this is a great place to start. You know what I mean? So I think that's probably a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the barbell curls they feel way more stimulative. And I think I remember even like years ago when I was like, I'm going to do some curls for a little bit. I remember like knowing that like a cheaty standing cable curl was like not optimal or whatever, but I always felt like I got the best pump from them. But that was like, 3 years ago. So I was like, well, but they're not the best. So then I just kind of got away from them. So I don't know. I think that's interesting, like caveat of, it maybe depending on your experience level or how many bicep curls you've done in your life, maybe you should do basics rather than.
Kirsten, you work with like actual true beginners. I got a question for you.
Yeah, what you got?
I don't, right? I don't work with anyone. But as any dude who started lifting weights in high school, I had a bunch of dudes like come to me and be like, teach me how to lift weights, right? And it's very funny because I've been doing this for so long that the idea of not knowing how to like feel a muscle, I'm like, dude, just squeeze your lat, you fucking moron.
Yeah.
You work with like actual people who have like never lifted weights before.
Yeah.
Do you find that like lighter weights trying to work on the squeeze works better for like teaching someone to feel a muscle, or like do you think they like to gain that sense of actually like knowing how to use a muscle is more worked by like doing something heavier?
So it's interesting. There's a degree to which you have to have enough of the muscle to feel it. It seems like.
Oh, so it's just like you just need to reach X level of hypertrophy?
Yeah, you
or
have
there's
to
just
like
no chance?
grow it a little bit. Like I always try to tell people like even if you can't feel it, like pretend you do. Like think about like lateral raises are a good example of like people who are true beginners like don't know how the fuck to do lateral raises ever. Like it doesn't like they're like using weird muscles and don't know what plane they're supposed to be in. So like stick them in front of a mirror and be like think about squeezing your lateral delt even if that doesn't make any sense. So because I feel like lateral or lat pull downs are also a good example. Like I did like what 3 years of lat pull downs.
Probably
2 years and I like couldn't feel my lats still. Jumped over to pull-ups and then pretty quickly I feel like that was more like of a potent stimulus to grow, or maybe it was like an effort thing since I was early training, but I pretty quickly grew enough lat to be able to like, you know, I was like, oh, okay, I definitely feel my lats now. So it's just interesting of like getting someone doing productive sets. I feel like I prioritize more than lightweight feel the muscle just because I feel like it's a faster route to having a big enough muscle to feel it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure. I remember being that like I was like, I don't know what the best way to teach that is, and that's something that I've had like truly goose egg experience on.
Yeah.
Is like teaching people any movement patterns or mind muscle connection. Because anyone I've helped at the gym has multiple years of lifting experience, but I was like, oh shit, you work with like people who like truly are coming in and like mom of 4, first time I've ever touched a weight, and are you starting to like figure out like best ways to get people from step A to step B?
Yeah, because I obviously believe that if you can feel the muscle, you're going to get a better result, even if blah, 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 evidence-based people will be like, that's stupid or whatever. But I believe in that. So I feel like it's almost counterintuitive that I'm like, start with, well, biomechanically, you're using the muscle, so it's going to grow. Then you can kind of like figure out your way into feeling the muscle. So I don't know. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I think like external validity of form and just get stronger. Like Kirsten said, it was interesting. She did pull downs forever, couldn't feel her lats. Just kind of got after it on some pull ups, grew enough lat, and then came back to pull downs. And it was just that she put on enough size to her lats that suddenly it was kind of flexible. Just look for like external validity. If it looks right, like this is kind of the certain segment of TikTok science guys that are anti-mind muscle connection. They're like, if you're in the right positions, this is like their levers, right? Like the muscle is taking the tension, right? And so you just look for like external, like positional correctness, and then you get stronger from there would be like the argument a lot of people would make. And then
like hypothetically, if you're doing a preacher curl, your shoulder can only take over so much. If
your bicep is working.
If you do 20 for 8 and then months later you do 40 for 8, your bicep is incapable of not getting stronger, right?
Exactly. Like there's no way you got around. There was tension running through your bicep.
Yeah.
That's always the preacher curl. I have such a funny anecdote about, because you know we have like we have the prime preacher curl at Prime.
I
Best.
cannot get my hands rotated far enough to use it well.
Just do them singles.
Fair. Like pretty gold standard curl machine.
Yep.
And there was one client I could not cue to not like do it weirdly, like with their shoulders and not get full range. So
Were they like moving to get it?
Yeah, they were like using their shoulder a lot in it, and I like kept trying to cue it, and I was like, maybe I'll just let them do this. So I kind of just like let them do ugly, weird reps because I couldn't get them to not for like 3 months, and then their biceps got huge, and then they were able to do them better. So that was a weird one. So I always try, but like that was a weird
wonder if it was a
anecdote.
weight selection thing or just like a true.
Good old kipping preacher curls.
You know, it's so funny. I did my pull-ups and I kipped on a couple of them for like 2 weeks because I was like,
Yeah.
I wonder if this is good for like to get like basically just like get to the top and then do like a controlled eccentric, get to the top. Oh my god, my brain wants to kip so bad now. I was like, oh fuck, how did I learn this habit so fast? Because I never even knew how, and I'd never even tried like bring my legs up, get that extra momentum, and I so quickly was like, I need to unlearn this. Every time I start struggling on pull-ups, I'm like, yep.
I do feel like it's like caveat though of like it's obviously just like that's part of being a personal trainer and working with like people who are may not be powerlifters is like you're not always going to be able to convince them to take enough weight off the machine to do it right.
Oh,
like
for
it's
sure.
just sometimes it's not an argument worth having, but in that case it ended up working out really well. I was just like thought that was an interesting anecdote.
Yeah, like if you deem that they're safe, right?
Like you're not going to hurt yourself doing a bad preacher curl.
But yeah, sometimes I like this bottom-up exercise selection thing where it's like just see what you're getting a good response to. Sometimes you should, if a lot of guys you respect are telling you this exercise is good, you should sometimes be like, it's not that I don't respond to this exercise, it's that there's something I don't get about how to do it. But like two machines that are great, the Prime Preacher Curl and the Prime Chest Support Row. We follow tons of really smart bodybuilders that are great. They're like, these are great machines. And I use them and I fiddle with it and I fiddle with it and I fiddle with my body position on the curl and I fiddle with how I did. I don't get shit out of it. I was doing like, I got stronger and stronger and stronger on this Prime curl in the lengthened loaded peg. And I got shit results. And then I did barbell standing curls for a block. And everybody was like, whoa, your arms are looking way bigger. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm a barbell curl guy. Barbell and dumbbell, just standing barbell and dumbbell curls. Like every time I've run those, or when the comments are like, Sam's arms are finally looking like a 600-pound bencher. It's like, thanks, I'm doing the standing curls again. I stopped trying to be smart. I just did some fucking standing curls and tried to get stronger at them with like decent form. It's interesting though, Max, kind of like from your conundrum, maybe you'll think this is interesting, is there's kind of an argument about that with like a beginner, right? Do you give them, like, is it better to give them the old school approach is like give them big compounds and teach them to produce force, and then we can start going towards these more isolated movements, but they need to learn how to, output force and push themselves. Or, you heard like, I don't know if you saw Bryce Lewis's post he put up, like, what is a beginner program? Why do beginners need a different program? Couldn't they just jump into an intermediate program and make fine progress? Why do we need a beginner program? And so that's kind of like a point of debate as to what degree does it need to even change? Or can you just teach them to do an intermediate program well, and they're beginners, so anything will work, but then they're getting a head start on like how to run intermediate programs properly, right? I used to feel like, because I don't coach many beginners, and I've never coached many beginners, like most of my athletes deadlift 600 plus. I don't really have a what is it? The horse in this race, right?
Yep.
But I've come around to like the compound, like make them do cardio, make them jump, and make them do some compounds, because if they don't have an athletic background, they're so bad at moving forcefully. They have no bodily awareness. Like even if their goals are just aesthetic, let's just pretend this is like a regular sport. We don't start out with hyper specialized training. We start out deliberately general, and then we add in more like bodybuilding specific lifts, but like learn to output force. Because Kirsten was asking, like, there's kind of a trend online of like women advocating for sprinting to grow your glutes. If you looked at like, would wellness competitor bodybuilder women grow their glutes from sprinting? No, that would be a very poor way to go about that. So I was like, I don't love that. Like, there's a good argument. Like, yes, it strengthens and mobilizes your hip flexors. And there is this like correlation that tight hip flexors, people with tight hip flexors have lower EMG activation in their glutes. There's a chicken or the egg thing there. Is it that people with low EMG, like they use their glutes less, get tight hip flexors, or is it that the hip flexors, so kind of address both? So I was like, sprinting could kind of do that. You'd see it, but it's not the best use of training economy. But then I was like, most people on the internet that are trying to grow their glutes are like a lot of people who haven't played sports seriously. They've never run. They're in that early phase of development. Fuck yeah, sprint. Learn how to create big forces in your lower body. I take it back. Like, yes, jumping isn't the best glute growing stimulus, but learning how to move your lower body explosively is something you should invest in. So I've got to like, Kirsten was like, man, I see people like, what do you think about this? And I kept being like, I'm with you. It kind of just sounds silly to me.
Just knee jerk, it seems like a waste of training economy. But that's coming from me, who's like deep enough in this that, you know what I mean? I'd probably would be better off doing like actual glute exercises.
Exactly. Like you've been running a glute day, and it's meat and potato stuff. It's just like heavy ass hip thrusts, heavy split squats, heavy abductions. Wow. Extension.
Groundbreaking.
Yeah, like one squeeze-centric extension, one stretch-centric extension, and one abducting exercise. Wow. It's just like that's the functions of the glute, right? Brother, what are some of your topics? This has been I've been thinking this was really interesting, but this is a little dry.
Okay, my first and most important topic.
Let's go.
There's no useless days.
Ah!
This has been a really this was a hole I found my mind kind of slipping into, where I was like, as I get better, then the opportunities I have to really try my hardest become less and less. Mm-hmm. Lame. Also objectively incorrect, right? Well, because I kind of meant that in the way of like, I don't get to do hard barbell AMRAPs very often, just because like the amount of times that's useful in my training is less and less. And so like I've come into really liking leg extensions or whatever, because it's something that I can just be like bone to metal as hard as possible. Whereas like, as an intermediate, my technique started getting better. I could do occasional hard barbell AMRAPs. I'm now strong enough where it's like, for fatigue, that's a lot. I'm putting myself in a deep hole. But also, that's not the only way that I get to try hard. Specifically, Wednesday is my speed bench day. And for the first 4 weeks of this program, I was like, I have to go get that done, right? What a stupid, bad way to approach that. And Sam and I has me doing like a speed tracker. We're getting some data. I don't have enough to make any great conclusions yet, but it's like interesting getting to track that. And so it's just been incentivizing me of like, what's the point of today? Improve my form, put a lot of force into the bar. So I should be numerically chasing, putting more force into the bar every single session. before I wasn't tracking my speed. I still should have been doing that. It still was a technique day. Part of good technique is putting a bunch of force into the bar. I should have taken every single set as a, like, this is a chance to get better. Or like, I don't know, behind the neck shoulder press. Is that 1-to-1 on my bench? Hell no. Why am I not trying absolutely as hard as I can to get better at that, though? Or like my grip. That is directly the thing that I'm gonna. That's the thing I'm gonna fail my deadlift on. What a great opportunity Wednesday is to get better. I get big juicy shoulders. I get better at bench press, and I get to not drop my deadlift. If I have a program day that I think is useless, either A, I'm looking at it wrong, or B, I shouldn't be doing that day because if it's oh, I'm just going to check this box. Why not make the box useful?
Yeah.
And it probably is. You're just not doing, or I was just not doing a good job capitalizing on that. And my form didn't progress nearly as much as it should have because I was doing 6 sets of sloppy, low effort, listening to a podcast bench.
Yeah.
Why was I not like, oh shit, what am I doing wrong specifically today? And I'm going to fix that. Next time I come around a bench, I'm going to have one less thing to fix.
Well, it's like I've talked on the channel, like the contexts in which I would give a speed day versus not. You being a super heavyweight athlete, I believe opens that up a lot. And so I'm like, I believe this is a good use of time for Max. If you listen to any elite lifter that has had success with traditional speed work, they all say the same thing, is if you think it's an easy day, you're doing it wrong. If you just think it's a light day, you're doing it wrong. If you think like this isn't a hard training session, you're doing it wrong, right? You need to it should be tiring putting maximal intent into every single rep. If you think it's easy, like you're like, oh, time to roll out there and listen to if you're listening to a podcast while you're doing your speed benches, you're probably doing it wrong, right? I have multiple lines of reasoning to believe that you becoming more of a sync bencher, sync benching being a little bit more of a meta for super heavyweights. Sync benchers' speed tends to correlate more strongly with top end strength than it does for like soft touch position guys. Like there's a lot of reason to believe that it's a good fucking use of time to get you moving pretty goddamn quick with 70%. Right? So I'm like, okay, that, like you said, that is the overload. That is the chance to push yourself. That is it's awesome now because you've got that tracker that I gave you to like have numbers and have PRs. But it can be done, like you said, it can be done without it, but the feedback of numbers makes it way more like awesome. I improved today. Just like log booking would tell you with like a rep PR if the goal was like a more hypertrophy.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, I was thinking about like intent on technique and stuff, where like, I don't know, my squat yesterday, right? I didn't do that good of a job of hinging, right?
It wasn't as bad as you think.
But trying to hinge.
Yes.
Pays off a bunch, because when my fatigue is lower, I'm suddenly able to hinge better, right?
I was going to say, if you can hinge like 75% as much as you should, when your hamstrings are fried from lower 2, when we start taking lower 2 easy, you're going to be like locked in using your hinge effectively in your squat. Like you said, it's like, I try to tell this to my lifters all the time. They're like, can we not go above 6 reps on bench press? My arch flattens out when I go above 6 reps. Fighting that is what makes you able to lock in like steel for your single at the end of the block. Fighting that breakdown is the best technique practice there is in the whole world. You fighting to make sure that you don't underhinge your squats is exactly what's going to allow you to lock into a fucking sturdy hinge with 850. Right?
Yeah,
it's the same things that you struggle with later in the rep set are often the same. And fighting that is the technical progress. Don't run away from it.
And it feels so silly and small, the idea of like, what would be like a visual 5% difference, right? Mm-hmm. Just the active like trying to like, I'm trying to fold and like trying to hinge properly into the hole, right? Even though I kind of don't want to, my back kind of hurts, like I'm pretty sore. Just that extra effort, it's so funny how much of a difference that makes and what my late lifts look like.
Yep.
Or like if I'm like a guy who's like trying to be like, I want to pull with a slightly more neutral back because I've started like hitting fat lockout issues from being like a little too bent over, right? Just trying to fight to keep your like, I don't know, your lats packed and your T-spine a little bit more pronounced. Even if you're failing to do so, just actively fighting is like a really effective stimulus that I feel like a lot of people like don't think about.
Yeah.
What my other one?
Let's go. Let's hear it, brother.
You've been talking a lot about like the best lifter loves everything they all aspects. Or
learn
like,
to like the details.
Not even just like lifters, right? People in life that succeed at things, right?
Yeah, they like the details.
You know, the newscaster who likes every aspect of his job is probably gonna do better than the guy who like only likes being on TV, right? And that's it. I was kind of like, oh well, you know, I'll sometimes think about like, oh, I've got to slog through this meal, right? Bad idea. Unproductive mindset, right? And I think that's what like medium-term goals do effectively for me, is they have like a very concrete idea of like me eating this meal is making me 1,000 kilo ready. Like looking at this meal and I'm like, this is putting on muscle that's gonna allow me to lift more, right? And so I'm excited to eat that meal because I'm contextualizing in my mind of like this goal that I'm scared of. It feels like a little bit farther away than it should. I gotta really fucking get after this. This thing is a contributing factor to that, and that's what makes me excited about it. I'm not really excited to eat my like fucking 8th meal of beef and rice because it's fucking boring and I'm bad at cooking, so it tastes like shit. Yep. But the fact that it's carrying me towards something I really want is what makes it exciting for me. And I think that has been a good way of me like kind of getting into the idea because where you're like, you should like every aspect of it, right? And I'm like, well, should I really like social media? That seems fucking lame, right? But when I think about it, it's like social media is this thing that if I get really good at, it allows me to be a better lifter. I like that because it's a step taking me closer to the version of myself that I want to be.
Yeah, that was kind of exactly my thoughts, right? Is if you really understand why the detail work translates, then you should kind of feel enthusiastic. She was reaching for the mic. There's a hair on my mic.
I was like, if Kirsten wants to talk, we got to get her the mic now.
She does. Okay. The detail work, if you really intimately understand how it translates to your longevity or your health in terms of being able to do it for longer or your peak result or whatever it is, you should end up, if you've thought through this and you truly believe it and understand it and have lived it, then you should feel some type of enjoyment or passion or I'm working towards my goal, even doing like the mundane stuff, right? Like I do my 10-minute walks and my cardio. Like, you know, I switched calling my rest day because I do my zone 2 work. I do more zone 2 work on my rest days. So I switched from calling them rest in my notebook to conditioning days. I'm very aware that I need to push those a little harder. Awesome. I wake up in the morning and be like, oh, today is conditioning day. That's the day that's probably lagging behind because I've got like right now only a couple different flavors of days. There's lower body days, there's upper body days, there's a full body day, and then there's conditioning days. My lower body's pretty strong. My upper body's pretty strong. My full body is pretty strong. My conditioning is not very good right now. This is the day to like work on my weakest link, you know? I think understanding like where the details fit gives you a sense of meaning doing them, right? Like the same thing with meals. If I just am like, I have to eat this meal. Okay, that's no fun. But if I'm like, eating this meal is preparing me for tomorrow, I've got some ideas in my head of like, even if it's like tertiary movement, you're like, man, I've been stuck at 12 reps on this weight on the lateral raises. I want to get 13. If you view this meal as the door to 13, like I was stuck at 9 reps on my alternating dumbbell curls for 4 weeks. And let me tell you that for some reason, that was the one that I was getting really hung up on. And so like I went to bed earlier, I like hydrated well, I warmed up well, and I finally got 10. I finally get to go up on weight. And like that gave me a tremendous sense of like, I don't know, direction the whole 24 hours leading up to it. Is I'm not going to fucking get 9 on these curls again.
Well, that's why I like logbooking for bodybuilding so much is because I feel like I understand that you don't have to logbook. Like that is fine. Mm-hmm. But having the like a set that I'm looking forward to medium term is like makes me want to do my stretching, which I used to hate doing, but now I understand is very important for training your lower body, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So now I actually do my stretching. And I think, I get that you don't have to logbook, but I don't understand. I would have a harder time being bought into like the lifestyle and the process if I didn't have like, oh, I'm really excited. I'm going to hit this hack squat set sometime in the next 6 months. My road leading up to that is I'm going to get a +1 this week. I'm going to get a +1 next week. You know what I mean? Like leading into that.
Yeah. Also, speaking of you and your bodybuilding going really well right now, you officially have put in your notice.
I have.
You're going full time in December.
Woo.
How are you feeling?
I'm excited. I'm a little nervous, but I'm mostly excited.
Are you making it through this last 2 months okay?
Yes, I think it'll be. I think it's like senioritis. I think I'm going to get more burnt out, but I like all the people I work with in person, so that makes it a lot easier is that it's not like when I quit my corporate job where I was like already had been burnt out for a full year before I put in my notice, and then I was like doing mega Uber overtime for no reason just because I felt guilty for leaving. So doing this time around, I'm like enjoy what I do, so it's still like enjoyable to the end is way better. Yeah, because you're having to work a little extra hard right now because you've got the in-person work still on the board, and then you also have a reasonable number of like online clients now. Yeah, but you're like staying afloat pretty well. Yeah, definitely. I think it's also like a lot of those like cringy Sigma grind set guys talk about it, but like learning that you're capable of doing more work is really like helpful mentally of like, I think 2 years ago thinking about working every weekend I would have been like, why would anyone do that? That sounds fucking terrible. But now that's just part of my life, and it's like not a big deal.
Yeah.
I think that's just really interesting of like, you're capable of more than you think you are, all that cheesy stuff.
Yeah, I think going through periods of like doing more than you've done before is great.
Right.
Because you get work done, but you also prove to yourself, like you almost level up a little bit.
Yeah, you can like set a new normal of like, I'm capable of doing so much more work in a day. Of like, I used to feel like there's not enough hours in the day to even do like my corporate job and then meal prep and then go to bed and train. You know what I mean? But now I feel like I've like unlocked a lot of hours, which is really cool.
For sure.
I was just say, very cool flex. Kirsten's corporate job is the same company that I work for. Very funny. When you quit, your department like imploded. So funny. that was really very funny because you were just like, oh, I hate this fucking useless slug. And then you left, and it was like an issue. Like I remember like multiple meetings about like, guys, this has become a problem.
Well, that's why she was like felt so guilty, is because she was like, I'm literally carrying the entire department on my back. I'm gonna put it down soon. Are you guys ready? And she like kept being like, you should hire more people. I'm gonna put it down soon. And they're like,
I organized and prepared so much shit that they just didn't take or care about.
And at the last minute, I think they realized that they fucked up, and they offered Kirsten whatever she asked for, and she's like, "No, I'm sober.
That's such a
I
funny
can't
idea.
do
Bring
it."
somebody into like blank check meeting.
Blank check meeting. Just write a number, please.
I remember when I said no, like the manager was like genuinely shocked, and I was like, "What did you think?" I was gonna be like, "Oh, you're gonna give me $5 more an hour? Oh, that makes me love this job."
Here's a hot take. I genuinely think they would have given you 12 more an hour if you asked.
Well, yeah, because for context, they were criminally underpaying me.
Yes. Yeah, it's weird that you had all this money that could have been allocated to me to carrying this department by myself when they were understaffed and you were doing everything. Weird.
It's good. It's good. It's what do they say? It's building character. It's good character building, I think, to work a corporate job.
In my mind,
It builds good motivation for being self-employed.
Yes, that is true.
I'm working a much less stressful corporate job than Kirsten was.
Yep.
When I go to Shooter Training LLC, I'm gonna have a moderate actual work ethic for my job. I've got a great lifting weights work ethic. I've got a very poor corporate America work ethic.
Max developed a philosophy when he was very young, which is try really hard at lifting weights and then do the absolute bare minimum at everything else you could possibly think of to save more energy for lifting weights. And recently you've had a little bit of a shift in philosophy. You're like, okay, maybe I am just being lazy for some of these things.
Some of them I do think, right?
Yeah,
Like,
for sure. Like not letting work stress you out. Like you were always like big on that. You're like, if they start stressing me out, I'm leaving.
oh,
I'll just go work
I've
at
been
McDonald's.
so quick. I'll quit any job if they start like if anyone yells at me, I'll quit. Like,
I think that's like, unironically, I think that's a really underrated skill for lifting, especially like for people who are really impacted by like work stress.
well, it's like some cortisol, life stress stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's like insanely detrimental to your recovery.
Like I would have a stressful day at my old job, and I would go to the gym afterwards, and I genuinely would feel like 50% weaker just because I had been like cortisol dumping all day.
Yeah, and so like
Yeah, but a lot of folks are not in a position to leave their job
But
for their
I'm
lifting.
saying you should build the skill of like how much you let that impact your stress levels, just because like physiologically. I think mentally, but also like I think there's like a physical aspect of like if you're able to, like Max, not let it stress you out.
Well, we've got a coworker. We have a coworker that is like this, right? Where it's like, there's two things, right? Like I think people get caught up in the mindset of like, oh, my job is inherently stressful. Sure, yes, there is an inherent. Some jobs have more stress than others. Max is in the position, which, to be fair, he put himself in the position to where he can bounce if the job's minimum stress level is too high, right? And he will, because
Hey,
that's his
I'll tell you what, the person who worked the exact same job before me said it was the most stressful job they've ever worked.
That's so sad. That is really sad.
They left because it was so stressful.
But there's also for like how you frame it impacts how stressful it actually is, right? Like it's like stress is so influenced by your perception. We have a coworker who is maybe the hardest working person I have ever met in my entire life. Like works 2 jobs, also helps on their farm regularly with raising cattle on top of 2 jobs.
And has kids.
And is doing continued education.
Yeah.
And is like cooking for and taking the 2 kids to daycare. Like I have no, it's a level of stuff per day that like I have no idea. It is a level of busy that, you know, I've known lots of people that've got jobs, they've got kids, they've got hobbies. It's that plus like 10. Like, because it's like you can't not take care of the cattle. You have to get up at 3 a.m. to go take care of the cattle. And like, she just has done it since she was so young that like she frames it as not a big deal. And she gets stressed out sometimes, like anybody does. But because she frames it as not a big deal, the amount of like damage she takes from it is less. And so it's interesting, like how, and like you know people, they're like, my job fucking sucks. And they start bigging it up in their head. And they're like, you're taking huge damage from a job that's really not that bad, right? Because you kind of bigged it up in your head that it's so terrible. And so that like shift in perspective, I think is huge, right? For like stress management, there's an objective amount of stress that you're going to have, but you don't realize how much of it is self-inflicted based on the narratives that you build around what it is that you're doing.
I think for my own life, there's like 2 separate skills, which is stress avoidance and stress tolerance. Mm-hmm. And I was just like super good at avoiding stress, where I was like, this person in my life is stressing me out. I should stop talking to them.
Yes.
Or anything like that. I'm just like, I'll just avoid anyone or anything because I'm like, I know I'm a good enough worker that I can work any low skill job and pay my bills. Yep. So I'll just go put myself in the environment that stresses me out the least, right? But I also was like, I felt like, I guess my recent change of philosophy isn't that I should be more stressed or I should put up with more. It's just that I should work on my stress tolerance a little bit more. Yeah. It's like, that's a good skill to have also, is to be like, what if at some point I do need to, like I'm put in a bad life situation, I need to figure it out. I shouldn't just immediately crumble and fall apart. Like the ability to have a little bit more tolerance is probably also a good thing.
I feel like it's a similar thing to what Sam's talked about in the past of like seeing people who think about meal prepping as like this big sacrifice versus people who are like, this is just what I do because like you have to eat food anyway, so I might as well be meal prepping. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's interesting of like, it's way harder for the people who are like, meal prepping is a big sacrifice that I'm willing to make for what I do versus like, well, I gotta eat food, so I'm just gonna meal prep. It's just interesting of like, similar concept of like how much damage you take from that activity depends on how you frame it. Obviously, blah, blah, blah. Everyone has a different amount of time of the day depending on their responsibilities, but it is important framing.
Yeah, like we've seen that with our clients, right? Like I've had like intermediate people, they've never done a sport seriously, but they don't think it's a big deal. They're like, oh, you mean that there's a way to eat that will make my gym progress better? Okay, I'll just eat that way. And then there's people like, I'm following a rigorous diet. And it's like, you're rapidly burning out.
Also, half the time they are.
What is that for? Yeah, no, you're just eating slightly more protein. What the fuck this is
bro cooked turkey one time and
right. Yeah, like I've had intermediate lifters who are just like, oh, that's fascinating. I didn't really think about that. You mean that like you really think my results will be like big amplified if I change my diet? Oh, cool. I'll just buy different stuff at the grocery store. And it's just a permanent lifestyle change and they see better gains, everything's great. And then there's like advanced guys that are like, I'm like, you're just eating a little extra chicken. Holy fuck, man. Like, and then if they don't hit a PR at the end of the block, they're like, I worked so hard and nothing ever returns back to me. And it's like, you followed a diet. Like the phrasing really matters, right? Like that was the thing with like Jasper. Jasper will eat the most insane diet you've ever heard of if he's got a reason to believe that it will make him stronger. And it doesn't tax him because he's like, oh, eating a giant bucket of rice alone will make me stronger. He'll just sit there eating a bucket of rice because he's like, golly gee, I want to get stronger. That's miserable. What the fuck?
Speaking of meal prepping made easy, incoming YouTube series once I'm full-time, Cooking with Klong or something like that. Easy.
We're taking names such Cooking with Klong is the prototype name, but
Meathead Meals.
Meathead Meals with Klong. We're taking suggestions for the name, but Kirsten's going to show those of you that are like me and Max that don't know how to cook pretty easy meals that are macro friendly.
And Sam used to be a better cook than me, so for context, it should be doable. I'll probably make a ranking scale of like how advanced stuff is.
It's like Sam and Max level is the bottom.
My goal is to almost never make you have to chop something up.
Okay, wow.
That is because that's the most annoying thing when I'm watching a video and then somebody makes like 10 dishes in the first 5 seconds. I'm like, I'm not fucking doing that.
I always hate when I watch a meal prep thing and they're like 15-minute easy prep. I'm like, I would bet you $1 million this shit
is
did
gonna
not
take
take
me
you
an
15.
hour.
Why? You can't just claim it took you 15 minutes.
Also, I'm not gonna put a bunch of cheese on shit. Every protein recipe has like half the protein covered
low-fat
cheese.
cheese.
That's about to be really unpopular with the large sites. You need to include that.
True.
You could put cheese on.
I'll put cheese optional, but I can't have
my
cheese.
My notice is buffalo sauce is because it has 0 calories whenever it's like high protein meal and it's just drenched in the goopy shit buffalo sauce.
And that bunch of cheese.
All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning into Large Lads. Leave a comment, please.